Hello, everyone. Oh, some familiar faces. Thank you. I am going to try to share my screen first, just to make sure I can.
It looks good.
Allison, can you see that? Okay. Okay, great. We'll give it just a minute for everybody to get on, since it seemed like the button was missing before for everybody. Give it just a second. And welcome everybody. Lots of friendly faces and lots of names I don't know. And I'm excited that you guys are excited about community land trusts. Oh, oops, sorry, I'm clicking away. All right, welcome everybody. I'm Stephanie Brewer. I'm the Executive Director of Newtown CDC. We are also Community Land Trust because in community development, we love everything that starts with community. we name everything that starts with a C. So we're a community development corporation and a community land trust. We are also a housing counseling agency. So just a little bit about Newtown before I go into some of the case studies that we have. We've been a nonprofit since 1994. A community land trust since 2001 and a housing counseling agency since 2008. We realized we could produce houses, but then we also needed to produce home buyers. So that's why we became a housing counseling agency. Currently, and I will say this is probably a month old, so we have even more now. We have 180 houses in the community land trust right now. We are expecting to be at 200 probably by the end of the year. Right now, we're buying and selling about a house a week to low-income individuals, either under 80% AMI or under 120% AMI, depending on what funding we're using. We also have down payment assistance. And this actually is going up quite a bit because Newtown was awarded a down payment assistance fund at $4.2 million that we are able to administer outside of other organizations. So we can stack and layer DPA with other DPA from cities, from the Home Loan Bank, from other places. So this number will go up drastically in the next year. This is our mission. I just like to focus on the financial well-being. I think that it was important for us to include that. We actually just updated our mission about 4 years ago and included the financial well-being because everything kind of starts there. Everything starts with being financially stable and comfortable, and then you can become a homeowner. These are the programs we offer, you know, from beginning to end. We help people with their credit, and we see them all the way through their home ownership journey. Since we still own the land in the community land trust, that's why we say stewardship, because we never go away. We're always with our homeowners. They can always call us. We're always there. You know, it's really a partnership of homeownership for us. So we start our case study. So, so we finished our Tempe micro estates last year in March 2022. It is 13 units of very small homes. They are 600 square feet. They are lofted, except for one is an ADA unit connected to the community center. So this was when Tom said that it takes a long time to build affordable housing, I chuckled a little bit because we won this RFP in 2017. We sold our last house in 2022. So, you know, he said, 2 years, and I was like, not even close. It took us 5 years to do this. And then also, you know, we had the bonus of building through COVID. We broke ground in November 2019. So supply chain issues, every issue you could think of, we got to go through it. So our first build for Newtown, I think we've hit a lot of learning points on this one. So I'll talk about our second new build that's coming up soon. So you can see that the aerial view, the 13 units, the community center, and the parking structure, we were able to get APS to donate all of the solar panels. And that goes directly back to the homeowners and covers the community area, their HOA electrical. Just a little cute, you know, this is what they look like. So this is what we built. The bathroom actually ended up on the first floor. This is an old floor plan. So, but you can see how small they are. That was really the focus, was to say 600 square feet. We learned very quickly that tiny home people don't like you to call 600 square feet a tiny home. Because they consider it under 400 square feet. So that's why we called these micro states and not tiny homes, because we were getting a little bit of pushback from tiny home people who thought that that was very important to make that distinction. So here we go into the actual project. For those of you that do affordable housing development, you understand, especially on infill development, how much the soft cost. And we talk about that a lot because the price per square foot is so high, but also we're spreading it against 13 units and not 110 units. You know, we're not building giant subdivisions, we're doing infill. Also, this site was 1/3 of an acre. So we fit 13 units with the community center with parking on 1/3 of an acre. You can imagine what that does to underground water storage. Basically, the whole site has an underground tank in it. So, so the soft costs and the infill costs were really high compared to most other developments. What is a bonus now, everybody? And I remember, and just a little background. So I used to be at LISC, and we did the first infill low-income housing tax credit project in the city of Phoenix. Cities are becoming much more sophisticated on understanding these costs and understanding why it's so important. So I think we're in a really lucky situation right now because the cities have become more sophisticated. And then Newtown is specifically in a lucky situation because we're developing in Tempe, which is pro-development. So we're not having, we don't have the NIMBYs that come out that do in Phoenix or Peoria or Glendale. And I am sorry if you guys do. I feel for you. But we're able to keep our projects kind of moving forward because of that situation. So here is our stack, our sources and uses. I want to point out, because the Community Land Trust is home ownership, most of our funding comes from selling the unit, which is most rentals don't have that opportunity because they have to rent roll. And they have to pro forma out for 15 years, especially if they're getting tax credits. But we're at a point in time kind of sale. So most of our income comes from selling the property. That doesn't mean that it covers all of the costs of building the property. It's just where most of the income comes back to us. So you can see, and we'll go through each one of these today, that we have a really diverse set of sources. We have the sale of units, we have federal funding, we have private funding. We also have a slide that I will say that is getting creative. That's the gap. when you get to the end and you decide, all right, now we're really going to have to put the rubber on the road. So what can we do? So there's a few sources in here that we'll talk about a little bit later. But that's the very end of getting creative to finish the stack. So first of all, the sale of the units, because we're homeownership, we sell the house and we move on. We don't have to account for maintenance. We don't have to account for vacancy. We sell the property and the property becomes the homeowners. It is the majority of the single source funding for us, more than government grants and more than private grants. Our model supports us 74%, you see, with selling the properties. We are one of 4 CLTs, and I see Gigi on the call. We're one of 4 CLTs in Arizona. So it's not a prevalent model for now. We're working on it. So, so we're very lucky when it comes to having to parse out the funding for the project or property. So next is the government funding. As you can see, we tapped it all. We went after everything. And we went after CDBG, home, Chodo home. We are a Chodo. That comes through Maricopa County. And so, you know, you can see there's 5 sources of government funding. The bottom 2, the CDBG 2.0 and Home 2.0 were funds we had to go back to the county and the city to ask for, because that was our shortage. That was our shortage to make the entire property under 120% AMI. So all 13 units are either sold to under 80 or under 120. So that was the gap that we needed to be able to income restrict all 13 units. I will tell you that the city and the county were surprised that it only took that much money to make all of the units income restricted. If I had not known that they would be surprised, I would have asked for more money. So these 2 numbers right here are kind of we need more money. And the county and the city really stepped in and made sure that we had that. The only problem with these are the ones with strings. These are the ones that have compliance issues. These are the ones that have Davis-Bacon or Section 3, for those of you who are builders. So it's not the majority of our funding, but it is the majority of the work. Because we have a 15-year compliance period and compliance documentation that's required to be able to draw these funds down. They are also reimbursable. So this isn't money that we have up front to pay our debt down. This is stuff we have to submit billing for. So we have to get gap financing. We used the Arizona Community Foundation 0% loan pool for our pre-development, and that covered a lot of the architecture and permitting and zoning and all the pre-stuff. But then you have to pay that back eventually also. So that kind of covered us to the point that we got reimbursed and could refund ACF. Then we went after private funding. We had 2 grants for this project specifically, one from Wells Fargo for $150,000. And what's great, and I think everybody will agree with me, what's great about general funding is it's not necessarily tied to the actual building. You can pay for marketing, you can pay for staff, you can pay for all the other things that you need to build the project that aren't directly tied to building the building. So I would suggest for anybody who wants to do a project like this to really research and find those private funds. As you can see, you know, we had we were lucky enough to have a bank support us, but we also got a little creative with another foundation that we found, Edwards Mother Earth Foundation. They're super excited about sustainability and about other ways to make not just sustainability as a whole, but the actual unit sustainable. So we were able to do some energy studies. We had some consultants, and then we got paid an admin fee for this. So it's not a lot. It's a little amount, but at this point, you know, you're just trying to, you know, puzzle it together and piece it together. So, you know, that 6,900 meant a big deal for us on the back end of being able to prove that these were sustainable, to have some consultants, and to have an admin fee on top of that. Okay, this is the getting creative slide I was talking about. So this is really kind of where the rubber hits the road. So we worked in permit fees to be reimbursable in our development agreement with the city. That has to happen pre even building. And you have to put that in very early. And I'm glad that we thought of that very early, that that we could get the DDA approved with the reimbursement. It wasn't a reimbursement on everything. We did still have to pay fees and permits, but it was a percentage of a reimbursement. So you can see it was $40,000. I can tell you we spent way more than $40,000 with the city, but at least we got something back, right? And then we got super creative with the site next to us. So we're kind of an L-shaped site, and right adjacent to us is the Container Home apartment complex. It's a funky little cul-de-sac. It's a lot of fun if you guys ever want to stop by. So we thought, how can we partner with that site, especially if we have the same amenities? So what we came up with is that their tenants could use the trash at our site, and we would split the cost of the trash enclosure and of the monthly trash fee for the HOA. I think that this is going to be a bigger issue moving forward for most people that are doing development, is we have to find out how to partner with other sites and with other sites adjacent to us, and how can we share the costs of some of the infrastructure that is very costly to us. So I think that this is probably, you know, it was only 5,000. It was probably it was the least amount. But going forward, I think this line has the biggest potential to really make an impact in the funding stack moving forward. And so that leads me to our next project. This is our new project in Tempe, another project. This is at Apache and the 101 at the Park and Ride, just east of the 101. The Park and Ride is right down here. It is not green, it is a parking lot, but it wouldn't make the rendering as cute if that was shown as a parking lot. So we are building 19 units. The first 4 are in the neighborhood, so they're 1-story, and then we go to 2-story into the site. And then we have a LIHTC apartment complex against Apache. So this is the partnering that I think is going to be really important moving forward, because Copa Health and Newtown went into this RFP together. So we applied for it as a team, basically, because it's a long, skinny site. So for us to apply for it as a team, what that accomplishes is that we can split the infrastructure costs. And we can do it seamlessly through the site and then share it, because we're not having to break, you know, at a property line right here, we can just go from here all the way back. So we're sharing a lot of the costs. We are only splitting the costs that go vertical. So right now we're using the same contractors, we're using the same architect, we're using the same inspectors. So that way we can get kind of the bang for the buck. And we're not having to pay 2 overheads for each project. We're just having to pay 1 and then we're splitting it. So this, I think, and we haven't broke ground yet. We just got our DDA approved 2 weeks ago at the city council. But I think that for the future of development and for making it affordable, it's going to start to have to be a partnership between nonprofits and mixed uses. So the apartment complex that they're building is actually going to have a clinic on the ground floor. It's going to have a cafe on the ground floor and meeting space, and then 140 units above that. And we're creating 19 units of homeownership. Yeah, I will always bang the drum for affordable homeownership. We need more of it. And the more that we can partner with affordable rental, we will. Because affordable homeownership gets overlooked quite a bit when you say affordable housing. That umbrella is so big when you say affordable housing that usually the affordable homeownership people are like, don't forget about us, we're over here too. So, so this is kind of the model we're looking at moving forward. We're lucky to try out this model in Tempe because they're so pro development. But I will tell you that Avondale is super watching this, and homeownership is being kind of touted, kind of wanted, being sought out for Gila Bend. Because I don't know if you guys are like me, I did not know Gila Bend was in Maricopa County until like a year ago. So surprised. And I'm from Yuma, so I thought it was in Yuma County, but it is still in Maricopa County. So we also have to look at our rural areas within the counties that we're in. So this model has also been a model for increased funding because the 2 of us, Copa and Newtown, can go to funders together. And it's so much of a bigger project than if either of us were doing it by ourselves, because 19 units doesn't sound like a lot. But when you put it together with the apartments, you know, they're doing 104, we're doing 19, but 19 affordable homeownership units is actually a lot. You know, we did 13, but it took us 5 years. So, so hopefully the 19 doesn't take 5 years. And, you know, we're gonna chip away at it. And I think that's how we're gonna get more units on board. We're not going to do giant subdivisions of 50 units, but it's mostly going to be infill. But then, you know, that creates the funding issue on how much you have to stack your financing. So going forward, I'll stay on that because I like that picture. So some other financing that we're going after for this project specifically is Home Matters. Through the health insurance agencies all got together and started a fund, and so we'll be going after that. We're lucky that it's in Tempe again, and I have Hometown for All, the initiative that the mayor put out for putting aside money to specifically support affordable homeownership and rental. It supports both. We are not able to tap into the state housing trust fund because that is mostly earmarked for homelessness and not homeownership. So that is a fund that's not available to us. And of course, LIHTC is not available to us because we are homeownership. And we don't want to do rent to own. That is not a model that Newtown knows or wants to know. So we'll leave the LIHTC right over there. So so really kind of what Newtown is focused on right now is the missing middle. You know, Tom said it correctly. We've done single family. and giant apartment complexes really, really well in the Valley. And so we're focused on townhomes, microestates, whatever we can fit in kind of the middle. We're going to do more townhomes. We're going to do garden patio homes, and hopefully some duplexes soon. So we want to make sure that we're still able to meet the need of affordable homeownership, but also meet the need of people that don't necessarily want to be in a scattered site single family house that Newtown has typically done before. We would buy a house off the market anywhere, resell it to a low-income individual, and then it would be a standalone CLT property. Not really a community, and you know, we're really looking to put that together. I think we are running close. I think I have 15 minutes, but I would love to open the floor and answer any questions, because I know I don't touch on everything that everybody needs to know. So I like to leave plenty of time for questions. You know, I can talk about this all day. So any questions would be great. Ellie raised your hand. I am going to unshare my screen so we can see each other. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I am just coming back from the gym, so I'm not really the best to be seen, but I will put on my camera. I have a question. I'm familiar with a lot of things around housing, but what I'm not familiar with is actually what is a land trust and how do we encourage cities and towns? I know you mentioned infill earlier. Is that the, you know, so just kind of the history and background of what community land trusts are, and then how do advocates in housing who work with cities and towns advocate for that kind of model? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ellie. Thank you. So a community land trust is a nonprofit that we produce units for affordable homeownership. So, and now the range of affordable homeownership has kind of changed because before it was always considered under 80% AMI, and now we've gone to include 120% AMI because it is so difficult to find units and to find buyers that qualify with the amount that houses are costing. So what happens is we typically buy or build, in this scenario, an affordable homeownership unit. We keep ownership of the land. So Newtown owns the land underneath the property, and the home buyer buys the house. It buys the improvements. So they get a mortgage on just the home, not on the land. So when we go to record documents, it's actually split into two. The property description just repeats itself. It just shows that it's two split units. So what we're able to do with that is we're able to sell a house for below market value. So it's not necessarily the house and the land minus the house minus the land cost. We sell the house arbitrary to market, depending on the grant funding that we have. So usually we're selling, I'll use microestates as an example. Under 80% AMI bought their microestates for 170. Under 120, they bought them for 210, and they were appraising at 350. So it's not just minus the land, it's also minus any grant funding that we can have, and down payment assistance. That's a big one right now. But when you go to sell your property, since you didn't buy it at market, you don't get to sell it at market. So we have a resale equation that we buy the house back. So we buy it back for what you paid for it. So let's say 170 and 25% of the appreciation. So we get a appraisal done when they want to sell it, and we do that equation. No, we don't touch equity at all. So people that have paid their mortgage or gotten down payment assistance, you also get that money back too, since we pay for what you paid for the property. So right now, we haven't had a resale in a while because of the market. But I think the last resale we had in just appreciation was $32,000. That was not including their equity, which I'm sure that they had down payment assistance, which would have been probably around $30,000 also. So, so we can kind of prove that we are promoting wealth building and family wealth and opportunities for families to build wealth, going out the other side of homeownership also. Does that make sense?
A little bit, yeah. Well, it totally makes sense. It all makes sense. Yeah, thank you. So, like, how many land trust communities, or community land trust nonprofits are there, and what are the type of land and stuff that you need? Like, how do you all find the land?
So we find the land through the cities. It's what the cities own and RFP out, because unfortunately, when you have to buy the land, you're all of a sudden a market developer. So if we have to buy the land, it immediately makes the project not viable for home ownership. So we work with the cities and the county on vacant land that they have, that they're going to RFP out. And then work with the cities and the county on funds to be able to do the projects that we want. So it's kind of twofold. It's the land side and the funding side. So we deal with kind of both sides with the cities.
So you could even deal with like churches. So, like, for instance, I'm at Church of the Beatitudes on 7th Avenue in Glendale. We have a huge lot. And so if the church should ever not be a church anymore, we could go to somebody like Newtown and offer to sell the land to it. And then you would work on the zoning and all of that in order to make it something to where it could be a community land trust.
Viable. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
And
Thank
that
you.
is something that's really come up recently with churches and with schools. I think I saw Gabriel Hermio on this session, and they're really working with the land that the schools own. Because, and if you think about it, and there's another one, there's a church on Central, and I think Bethany, that has a giant parking lot. And so, how can we partner with somebody like that we can put apartments or microstates or townhomes, in a corner of that parking lot, and we're not actually disturbing anybody that's going to that church. So we're trying to get creative.
Yeah.
We are. So thank you for bringing that up, because that is actually a super thing right now.
Yeah, I'd love to definitely connect. And I saw other questions popping up. Thank you all for giving me this space to ask that. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ellie. Krista, I see your hand up.
Yes.
Hi, Krista.
Okay, thank you. I just, want to thank you for promoting home ownership. I think that's so important as well. Obviously, in this market with rents constantly increasing, home ownership really is one of the most sustainable forms of housing. So thank you for all the work that you're doing. I have a question specifically about the home funds, though, and how you worked that into the project and what type of a split you did. You mentioned that some of the units were 80% AMI, so I'm assuming those were all home funds. And then did you ever consider using the home funds for DPA versus construction? Because I know that makes a difference also in terms of cultural resources studies, environmental reviews, and things that you need to do up front.
Right. So the split was, to begin with, home funds were only funding 4 of the units, because we weren't quite, we were still kind of trying to figure out home funds for new construction when we started this. Also, this was Newtown's first new construction project, so we were kind of building the car as we were driving down the road. So we had 4 units that were assigned to the home funds to begin with. Then we figured out that we could have 7 units assigned to the home funds. And the reason why the numbers are so important is because it activates Davis-Bacon. And so when we activate Davis-Bacon rules, we can't be affordable anymore. So because for multifamily, it's easier to pay Davis-Bacon rates because you're spreading it across 104 units. We were spreading it across 13. So we had to stay under the amount for Davis-Bacon. And so that's why we went back to the counties and the cities for that 2.0 funding, so that we could heavily fund the under 80%, that we still would make money doing the under 120%. So that's kind of how the split came out. But it was only 7 units for home and Chodo home. That was all those funded. And then what was the second question? What was the second part?
Oh, DPA versus construction. So the funding would have been used for DPA. How would that have changed things?
So since only 51% were under 80% AMI, that we could have offered DPA anyway, we used the WISH program with the Federal Home Loan Bank, and it was enough. So we needed the funding more for construction than to sell the units. So we still provided DPA. We just needed to make ourselves whole first. But everybody under 80% AMI did receive DPA and did receive WISH funds. So tack on to that now, Newtown has a DPA fund that will fund under 120% AMI. So when we build these 19 units, if we can keep everything under 120% AMI, there's just going to be another level of DPA. I think that answers the question.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Okay. I also have a note I see in the chat. What are some of the challenges that arise from the buyer standpoint as they go through the process? Credit, credit, and credit. Credit is the absolute driver of getting people ready for homeownership. You know, we're helping people that don't make a ton of money, and so kind of the saying for us is, you fix credit one of 2 ways, with time or money. So what we have is time, and we don't necessarily have the money. So we say, we tell anybody, if you're even interested in Sunday owning something, come see us now so that we can help you build your credit to be able to get the mortgages that you can. Then we work with specific lenders, because not all lenders will lend on a community land trust. Not all lenders know how to lend without having the property involved in it. And so what we're able to offer is our homeowners mortgages at a lower rate, because they're CRA eligible and they're probably portfolio products that the bank is holding. So right now our interest rates are between 5.5 and 6.5. We're not at 7.5. So, and we're always under 80% loan to value for our properties, for what is being bought. So there's also no mortgage insurance. So really the only barrier that really it comes up against is your credit, and then how much you can qualify for. We do have some clients that have been under, they don't make enough to pay for a mortgage. But we also help them fix their credit and get into an affordable rental. So we kind of, you know, we want to make sure we keep it going. That's that financial well-being portion of it, that even if homeownership is not for you, we still want to make sure that you can move forward and feel comfortable in your finances. The source, I think we're going to cut off soon, but I'm still going to keep answering questions as long as I can. The source for the $4.2 million was ARPA. It was the Treasury recovery funds that came through the county. So it's not HUD money, it's Treasury money, which is way better than HUD money because the compliance is so much easier. So we applied, they had an open RFP. We threw some noodles against the wall and saw it stuck. So, you know, we were really concerned about DPA, and that will continue to come up in conversations that we talk about homeownership. We're worried about DPA going away. So we were trying to create a fund. It is a revolving fund, so it is due back upon sale, but then we can offer it to somebody else. So we'll keep it going. On the La Victoria project, who owned the property? The property was owned by the city, It was bought with CDBG money when the light rail was going in, and they were doing some transit work along Apache. And the entire property will not be in the land trust. The apartments will be a separate property. We're splitting the property between them and between the home ownership. All of the home ownership side of the project will be in the community land trust. Oh, I think I got that one. Will the recording be? Yes, I was told that the recording of the presentation and the PowerPoint will be put on a website sometime after today. I did send the slides yesterday to Amy, so they will be accessible. I just don't know totally where, but they will be.
We'll send out a message to all the attendees, so you'll have access to the web, the recording, and also the slides.
The slides. Okay, great. I think I have got everybody's questions. If anybody has another question, or we can go back to the main room because they're going to cut us off in 2 minutes anyway. But I'm always willing to keep answering questions. Or in the slide deck is my email. If you want to send me an email, I'm much better at email than anything else, as I think most of us are. So if you want to send an email with a question, please do. Sarah, yes.
Yeah, just one quick question. So you focused initially on buy downs, basically, right? So you would just buy market rate units and then sell them at a lower price point. When did you switch to the development model, and do you still do buy downs as well when they come available?
Yes, we still do both. So we still have grant funds to buy houses off the market and sell them. That's still our primary business line. We have more money for that than for new development. So that's how we produce most of the units that we have. And then when we decided to go into new development was we realized we're getting priced out of the market and we can't buy houses off MLS anymore because of HUD regulations, and you can only pay so much to buy a house. And there were not houses on MLS for that price in Tempe. So we realized that we were going to have to start producing units if we wanted to still have a footprint in the cities that we are. I will tell you, we got priced out of Scottsdale about 10 years ago. So just seeing the trend, and Chandler's right behind Tempe on that. And so that's why we decided to start going into new development also, because, and I know you guys have all seen these studies and you've all seen the numbers. We don't have enough units. So even buying houses off MLS and reselling them at a lower